process of running a webinar. I think we are live on YouTube right now, but process of running a webinar. There we go. So for the folks out there who want to watch on YouTube, I'm going to drop the YouTube link in the chat. I don't know why, but some people do prefer watching on YouTube. I suggest you stay on Zoom though, because in Zoom you can ask questions. We don't really monitor the YouTube chat for questions like we ought to be. But yeah, I highly recommend Zoom over YouTube. But if you do prefer YouTube, if you prefer the YouTube viewing experience, it's in the chat for you guys to check out. But since we are live on YouTube, since we are ready to start, I think we can hit record. So we have a recording to say. And once Zoom tells us the recording is in progress, that is our cue to begin. So welcome everyone to this webinar about how universities can increase enrollment using marketing automation. Super happy to be hosting this webinar for you guys, and super privileged to have the folks from Leadsquare co-hosting this webinar with us. But we'll get into all of that in the next couple of slides. As I just mentioned, this webinar is being co-hosted by, I'm trying to get this video in a place that doesn't block the text. As I mentioned before, this webinar is being co-hosted by DARS, that's us. We help businesses digitize and automate processes, boost conversions, and troubleshoot queries using chatbots. We've been doing it since 2016. That's the elevator pitch description, but really what we're trying to do is we're trying to improve the way that organizations out there, whether they're government agencies, whether they're universities, whether they're multinational corporations or small businesses, we're trying to improve the way that they interact with their customers online. We want to be that engagement layer between them and their customers. And the way we facilitate that engagement just happens to be conversations and chatbots. But as I mentioned before, we are privileged to be joined today by the folks over at Leadsquare, who are a leading education CRM. Before I hand it over to Vineet to tell us a few words about Leadsquare, I think they have the ultimate bragging rights in the education CRM space, in that when you look up education CRMs or when you look up top education CRMs, Leadsquare is always there in the top of the results. And I know this because we actually, fun fact, Vineet, I don't know if you know this, but we actually have, when we're hiring folks on the marketing team, we always get them to do a prospecting exercise where we ask them to look up CRMs in a certain space who we can collaborate with on webinars. And usually it's the education space, and without fail, everyone pulls up Leadsquare as one of their options because it always shows up in the top of Google search results. So that's really how you know that they are a leading education CRM. But Vineet, would love to hear some more from you about what Leadsquare does.
Yeah, no, thanks a lot for this, it's like warm welcome. And also, it's like most of it has been described by you. But yeah, I mean, I'll introduce myself, and then I'll say a few words about Leadsquare again. I'll try to complement whatever you have said. So my name is Vineet Tiwari, and I take care of South India sales. I'm associated with Leadsquare from last 5.5 years. Leadsquare, as Arnav has mentioned, that is a leading CRM that helps the educational institutes, the institutions basically to automate, to map, and to manage the whole admission process. So starting from an inquiry till enrollment, the whole that complete journey can be mapped and managed through Leadsquare. And we have been helping a lot of institutions so far. So as the screen shows, so more than 600 plus educational institutions are kind of being benefited by Leadsquare.
Awesome. So, yeah, I mean, 600 plus education institutions, you're doing something right if you have numbers like that. But moving on, so Vineet introduced himself a little bit for the folks over here who are newer to these STARS webinars. My Slack is going off in the background. Unsure why. Something must be going on. But so to to give you guys, and I lost my train of thought for a second. Slack notifications have a habit of doing that. But to give you an introduction for myself, for the people who are newer to this webinar, I'm Arnav. I'm a content marketer over here at TARS. And my job is essentially to create content just like this to help you guys get the most out of your marketing and customer service operations using chatbots. That's pretty much it. Let's get started with the actual webinar and what we're talking about. Now, this is, if you guys are longtime fans of TARS webinars, you will recognize this diagram because we use this a lot. And actually, the first place where we use this diagram, where we got this diagram, was in the first webinar that we did with Leadsquare. So this is a real throwback to almost a year ago now, where we hosted another webinar with Leadsquare. But in a nutshell, the average marketing journey for most students across institutions, across programs, across levels of education follows these three stages. They start off as a visitor on your site. Increasingly in the age of digital marketing, they're landing on your web pages first. So they start off as a visitor on your site. You try to convert them into a lead when they're on your site. So you capture their email ID, you capture their phone number, you capture some details about them that let you follow up with them or nurture them. That lead goes to your CRM, which is really the brain of your marketing and sales operation. And then over there, that's where you try to nurture them to become finally an enrollee and a student. So the way we are going to divide this webinar up today is we're primarily going to stick to our respective parts of this journey, but there will be some overlap. I'm going to be primarily talking about how you can convert more visitors into leads, and then I'm going to hand it over to Vineet to talk about how you can nurture those leads, convert them into enrollees and then students. With using a CRM, using lead nurturing. Now, a key point to note about this diagram is that while it looks simple, it's actually not as simple as it seems, because the path to get from one stage to the next is a lot longer than it seems, and it is riddled with gaps through which your leads can fall through. And what we are talking about today is essentially how you can use automation to minimize the effect of these gaps so that more people make it between the stages of this journey. So we're first going to talk about how you can get more people from the visitor stage to the lead stage using automation. And then we're going to talk about how you can get more people from the lead stage to the student stage using automation. We have a lot to cover in the next hour or so. So let's get started with the first section, which is how you can get more visitors to convert into leads. And I think a good place to start, as you can see, I love making flowcharts. I love making these journeys. So we're going to start with yet another one of these journeys. We're going to look at the journey of a student when they are considering an educational program. Now over here, I have Click and Add. A lot of educational institutes around the world now run PPC ads. But even if you're not running PPC ads, even if you're just using organic, the point is that you are directing traffic to your web page, whether that's through social organic, whether that's through search organic, whether that's through PPC, which is paid, obviously. You are somehow or the other, you're investing time or effort into your marketing efforts to bring people to your university's page. You're bringing people to your program-specific pages that students are interested in. Now, once students are on this page, the next step for the student is, it's almost universal. No one is reading the text on the page from start to finish. They're skimming the information. They're glancing over it in a couple of seconds, scrolling through it, seeing what catches their eye, and making a quick assessment of whether the program is of interest to them, whether the program applies to them, and whether it's something that they might be interested in applying to at some point. Now, this skimming process, it's honestly a little sad because we invest so much time and effort into creating our creatives. We invest so much time and effort into creating our pages, making sure that the text on it is optimized. But the unfortunate truth is that when students land on it, prospective students land on those pages, they're not actually reading all of that information. They're just skimming over it. Now, from here, the student has a couple of potential paths that they can go down. The first is that they can, in an ideal world, you've wowed them with the information that's there and they start an application, submit that application, and then it's off to the races with them. You can assess whether you want to accept them or not and turn them into an enrollee. The second and more common outcome is that they request information. Usually a lot of universities have request information forms where you can request information about your program. And a lot of students will, at this stage of the journey, because they're just researching, request more information. These two outcomes over here, we can consider them to be conversions, because if they go down any of these two paths, they are sharing their contact details with you, so you can nurture them in the future if they don't complete the application, or if they don't express their intent to apply for the program. The third outcome is where things start to get a little dicey. What we've seen happens a lot is that folks who have questions about the program, instead of requesting information, they'll find the email address of someone on staff and they'll email them with their questions. Or alternatively, they drop from the page. They'll drop from the page and say, I saw the information that I needed. I don't have all the information that I want. Even if they come back in the future at some point to your page, they're dropping from the page right now. And that's obviously a problem because you put in a lot of time and effort to bring them to your page. And it's not a guarantee that they will come back. So you obviously don't want them to drop from your page at any stage, especially if you're running PPC ads, because PPC ad is obviously something you've paid for. So you've paid to bring that person to your page. You don't want them to drop. Now, in this webinar, what I'm going to be talking about is how you can avoid these last two outcomes. And a good place to start understanding how you can avoid those two outcomes with automation is to look at why these outcomes happen. And the real key phenomena that's at play over here is user uncertainty. When people land on your page, the reasons that they drop, the reasons that they call counselors is because they can't find the information that they are looking for. They want to know certain things about your program. They want to know how your program meets their specific requirements, how your university meets their specific requirements, but they are to be certain about their decision to apply, but they can't find that information. And it's unsurprising that they can't find it because landing pages these days are filled with text, they're packed filled with information, and it's hard to make sense of what's on the page. So if you can't address these questions that people have, if you can't address this uncertainty that people have, it results in lead loss. So the real question that we need to ask ourselves is, how do we address this uncertainty? How do we answer questions without getting admission staff involved, without getting students to close from the page? And the unfortunate truth right now is that a lot of the information which students are looking for is already on the page. They're just skimming through the page, so they can't find that information. So the solution that we have is automation, of course. And if the description of TARS wasn't a giveaway, the specific type of automation that we talk about at TARS, the specific type of automation that we use at TARS is chatbots. Now, what a chatbot is an automated customer service representative that can resolve queries that a prospective student might have, capture their lead information. So instead of filling out a form, what they do is they can just submit the information over a chat. They can step them through processes. So if there's an admissions process that they have a question about, how's the admissions process going to work, the chatbot can step them through that process in a chat, say, hey, this is the first step, this is the second step, this is the third step, and then the user can ask questions along the way. The chatbot can collect feedback from customers, which is important to optimize your funnel even more. And then they can automate backend workflows as well. And what I mean by that is that we will get into this, but since we're on this webinar with Leadsquare, what a lot of our customers do is they collect lead information, they collect conversation information from their chatbot, and then they send it to their CRM. In a lot of cases, that CRM is Leadsquare. But that is essentially what a chatbot is. Think of it like an on-site concierge. So you go to a hotel, there's always someone at the front desk who can answer your questions. Chatbot is the same thing for your website, where it's an on-site person who can answer questions that you might have as a student when you are navigating around the website. Now, the reason the chatbots are a better option than no chatbots is because they deliver a mobile optimized experience. When you think about it, chat is an inherently mobile native experience. Chat was built for mobile first, whereas your average website, you're just taking a desktop website, squeezing it down, which makes the experience even more wordy, even more verbose. And it's a conversational experience, which is, I think, the more important one. Usually when people click onto your pages to find information, it's sort of just an information dump. You load everything in one go, and then you say, hey, here, have at it. You guys can make sense of all of this information. If it interests you, it interests you. If it doesn't interest you, you can drop or you can contact us. But here's all the information you need. Here's an information dump. With a chatbot, on the other hand, they click on the chatbot sends them a few short messages and then waits for them to respond, and then guides the conversation information in the direction that the user wants to go to. So the end result is that the user isn't seeing all of the information that's available. They're only seeing the information that applies to them, and they can decide what information gets revealed to them in the chat using their user input. The beauty of this approach is that conversational marketing like this is not something that's new to us. The conversations that folks are having with admissions counselors, the conversations that folks are having with representatives from your university are pretty much the same. But the only difference is that you don't have a human being involved. So it's considerably cheaper. It's instant because there's no wait time associated with it. The chatbot doesn't have to sleep. So the chatbot is available 24/7, and it can have infinite conversations at once, meaning that, which ties again to the instant point over here, no one has to wait ever to get into a conversation with a chatbot. They don't have to book a time to speak to a chatbot. They can just speak to the chatbot instantly when they're on the site thinking about the program. So those are the advantages of chatbots. Let's actually get into what it looks like to automate. So this is a case study that we have with the University of California, Irvine over here in the US, but they were able to automate a few thousand queries and in a very short span of time, in a couple of months, and it reduced the load on their admissions counselors, and they were able to see increases in their conversions because, one, their efficiency went up. Their email inboxes used to be clogged with all of these emails from students that they couldn't get to necessarily quickly, but the chatbot helped them solve that problem. But let's talk about where these chatbots actually get deployed. And I actually have an extra module that I added to this webinar today, which I think will apply more to the audience that's here today. So these chatbots, they can get deployed as a website widget. So when you guys were signing up for this webinar, there was a website widget that you interacted with. It opened up, you put your email in and you signed up, right? Same way you can deploy a website widget to your programs page, to your university's page. Second, you can deploy it as a conversational landing page. So in this way of deploying a chatbot, essentially what happens is every chatbot on the front looks like a conversation, but on the back can essentially just be CSS, HTML, JavaScript, and it has a URL. So what you can do is if you're running ads, for example, someone clicks on your ad, instead of dropping them onto your regular page, what you do is you drop them directly onto the chatbot. You give the link as the landing page, the link of the chatbot, and they get dropped directly into the conversation. So you're skipping that middleman of skimming through the information, and you're getting right to the business where they are having this conversation that can convert them and address their questions. And before I get to the third option, because I think it's bigger than these other two, another advantage of chatbots is that, like I said before, they hook up directly to your CRM. When information gets captured, it goes directly to Leadsquare, hopefully, because it's the best CRM. But that's another advantage of using these chatbots before we continue to the next stage. But there is more. There is a third place where chatbots do get deployed, and it's worth mentioning for this webinar. And this is where I said we'll overlap a little bit into the lead nurturing discussion before handing it off to Vineet. A third place where we're seeing universities increasingly use their chatbots is on WhatsApp. So essentially, prospects can click onto a link. We'll get into it in a little bit, but prospects can click onto a link that looks like this, associated with a WhatsApp business number. That WhatsApp business number is essentially a number that belongs to your university. And once they click on that link, they get dropped into a chat conversation with your WhatsApp chatbot, which is that automated customer service agent, but it lives on WhatsApp and can respond to people on WhatsApp. And then you can have the conversation over there. Now, I need to redo the order of these slides a little bit in the future, but the beauty of this is that it's not just a question of having the conversation at a different place. It opens up an entirely new marketing and customer engagement channel for you, because WhatsApp allows you to do a certain set of things that maybe a web-based chatbot or just your website can't. So the way you can think of WhatsApp marketing, this phenomena of interacting with your customers on WhatsApp, is you can think of it as a new customer engagement or a new student engagement channel, where you can do three things. You can build an audience, you can drive conversations, and then you can re-engage customers. So that's where the nurturing comes into the picture. The way it works is that you direct people to your page, and instead of getting them to click on a web-based chatbot widget, you can get them to click on a WhatsApp-based chatbot widget, or you can include that link that I showed you in your emails, have it on as a QR code on your brochure. The point is you direct traffic to your WhatsApp chatbot, you start a conversation with them, and then you can re-engage them in the future using notifications to bring them back to the conversation. The reason it matters is because WhatsApp obviously has a massive user base. So this is where your prospective students are hanging out. They're all anyways on WhatsApp. So you want to meet them where they are and have the conversation with them where they want to have the conversation with you. And increasingly, as the statistics on the screen show, that is WhatsApp. WhatsApp is the place where these conversations happen. And a key point to note about WhatsApp is that my slide ordering over here is a complete mess. I need to revise this for the next time I use these slides. But one of the key advantages of using WhatsApp for having conversations is that they have considerably higher open rates, response rates, and engagement rates than regular marketing channels, right? So for other lead nurturing channels, you're using email, you're using SMS, your open rates tend to be low, your response rates tend to be low if you're not doing it right, if you don't have the proper best practices. But WhatsApp still has relatively high open rates and response rates because it's a new channel. And the beauty of WhatsApp is that it's a two-way form of communication, right? So you send someone a message and they can respond to you instead of just reading the information, consuming the information. How you get started with WhatsApp is, there are 4 steps associated with it. You get WhatsApp Business API access, something that we can help you with at DARS. We've got customer success managers who are pros at this point. Then you build your WhatsApp conversational flow. We have a drag and drop builder that allows you to do this, obviously. You build your audience, which is that process of getting people to your WhatsApp chatbot. And as I showed you later in these slides, you have a link that you can send people to, and you can put that link in a bunch of different places. You can put it in a widget on your page. You can actually have Facebook ads directly to your WhatsApp number because Facebook owns WhatsApp. You can have it as a QR code on your brochures, pamphlets, have the link embedded in your email campaigns, SMS campaigns. Wherever you have a link to a website, you can have a link to your WhatsApp number. So that's how you build your audience. And then once you build that audience, you can re-engage them over there using WhatsApp campaigns. So this is a feature where once someone has opted into a conversation with you, you can send them messages to bring them back to the conversation. And what do you have? What sorts of messages do you send in these re-engagement campaigns? Here are a couple of ideas that I had. Obviously, there is a third idea over here. Maybe I need to refresh the slides real quick. Yep, there's the third idea. Slides hadn't updated, but things that you can send in WhatsApp re-engagement campaigns is if someone dropped while they were filling out a form, while they were filling out an application, you can send them a message to say, hey, you were filling out this application. Are you still interested? You can send them a link to book a counselor meeting with you if you're trying to nurture them. So you obviously don't want to have them book many meetings at the beginning, but further along in the journey, you might want them to book meetings. And then you might want to also send them information about the university or the program. The key with WhatsApp re-engagement campaigns is you can't be promotional, you have to be informational, but that actually works for marketing purposes because the best way to convert people is not to be too salesy, it's to be informative. So if you deliver informative messages at the right time, you can do wonders to bring people back into your journey in the lead nurturing stage. But that's enough of me talking about lead nurturing, because the real lead nurturing pro over here is Vineet and the folks over at Leadsquare. Seriously, a lot of our customers actually do use Leadsquare for their CRM, and they link our chatbots up to Leadsquare, and they all tell us good things. So pay close attention to what Vineet says in the next section, because the folks over at Leadsquare really know what they're talking about. I'll throw my contact details up here for a second in case you guys need to get in touch. Feel free to get in touch with us on these contact details. But one of my colleagues will share those contact details with you in the chat for you guys to check out. For now, I'm going to hand it over to Vineet because I definitely went over on my time. Vineet, over to you.
Hey, Arnav, so thanks a lot. It was really wonderful. It was a wonderful presentation, and that little overlap that we discussed is it's like quite interesting. And I could also see that a lot of things are kind of it's like complementary to the engagement that we have. So apart from so this kind of gave a kind of new like horizon and idea as well, where it's like our integration with your chatbot and this sort of WhatsApp engagement can work together.
Right.
And it can, like benefit organizations.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because I think the key point to note is that while I was talking up chatbot as a WhatsApp chatbots as a way to nurture your leads, I mean, the name of the game in 2021 is omnichannel engagement. You need to be everywhere. You can't just be on WhatsApp. You can't rely on wholly on one channel, especially when that channel is owned by a corporation like Facebook. You need to be everywhere, and you really can't be everywhere unless you have a CRM like Leadsquare. So
True. Thanks a lot, Arnav. So I'll start with, so as we mentioned in the beginning, that the component, the whole journey start from an inquiry. I mean, okay, visitor to lead, and then the lead to enrollment. So first part has been like beautifully covered by Arnav. So I'll be taking from lead or inquiry to enrollment. So that process I'll be talking about. So there are three stakeholders of that journey. So one is definitely the lead or the inquiry. The second is the counselor who is working on the back end, and third is the process, right? So these three. I mean, so I'll try to align my thoughts on how we should be able to give a better, it's like a better now kind of experience to the students. The second will be how we would be able to improve the productivity or efficiency of the counselors. And the third part would be how do we bring in efficiency into the processes. So these are the three components. And to derive on these three components, I will start with the five components or the five steps which are involved into the process of admission. So it starts with student like application process. So in the first slide, I mean, it's like Arnav first slide, there was a kind of picture where student was trying to fill in a form, or where a visitor has came or say landed to a landing page or on the website, and then he has to fill that application form. It start from there. Now, once he fill that form, so that form can be of one stage, single stage, or multi-stage. So there will be different stages in that application form as well. That start with capturing of the basic information. Then there can be a token payment. Then it's like a whole lot of information has to be entered. So that's the second part. The third part is once this application is filled, so on the back end it should automatically it's like notifying to the counselor who is sitting, and wherever there is a drop off. So in the first slide, I mean, that was very it's like beautifully depicted that there were two gaps. So first gap was when like visitor is coming to become a lead or an inquiry. Okay, and there is again a gap when the inquiry is trying to fill that form, and then it's like trying to be converted as an enrollment or admission. So there was a gap there as well. So now to fill that gap, so most of this process can be automated, but at the same time, the human intervention is also needed at the right time. So we try to automate that process when it's like as in when required. The human intervention can be taken care of. Yeah. The fourth component of this is the publisher dashboards. So for all the institutions, they generate a lot of inquiries and like leads through these publisher portals. But ultimately, they would want to see that from which source, how many inquiries are coming, and they want to check on the dedupes. So how do we handle that? So Leadsquare is a perfect solution to handle those things as well, where we would have a kind of dashboard that shows you very clearly that 100 inquiries from publisher A and 200 inquiry from publisher B. Out of that, how many has been converted? So those things. The fourth and the fifth and the most important is the engagement. As Arnav also mentioned, that it's like the engagement is very important, because when a student start filling his application form, he may drop off at first stage. So what sort of like communication has to be sent, whether through a WhatsApp or through an SMS, through an email, okay, and where he's responding. So basis the response of the student again, that channel has to be optimized for further like communications. So these are like 5 basic components, and like I'll talk separately about each component and try to highlight that how do we automate each component. So let's start with the first, so when we have these components, so which are the major, like challenges faced by most of the institutions. So basis on the expertise of, like onboarding these 600 plus institutions, we have kind of, like boiled down the problem or the pain points to these 5, like parameters. So first is the application process. So most of, the institutions earlier were having kind of, like paper forms where it was very difficult to complete that cycle, to make it automated and to bring it at the same time on a real time to in front of the counselor that this application has been filled. The counselor has to be, distributed, assigned. So those were the problems we identified. The second was it was in the paper forms. The counselor were like supposed to meet the student when the student is coming to campus. In the world of, like digitalization, where now everything is going on digital, where we're talking about chatbot, where we're talking about engaging the student through different mechanism, whether it may be through chat, through WhatsApp, through email, through SMS. So counselors should also be kind of equipped to handle the inquiries through these mediums. And along with that, the counselor should have, access to all the information that, okay, the student has applied for this particular course, the inquiry, it is raised from this particular place. So there should be a centralized system which should be able to capture all this information and place it in front of the counselor when he's talking over phone to the student, so that this information can be kind of leveraged, and then the counselor would be able to build the conversation basis this information. The third problem was the institutions were not able to track that what are the communications that have been sent out to the student, whether emails, SMSs, and like who had sent those. So again, we thought that there should be, a central repository to basis the lead, inquiry, that every inquiry should have a wall and like on a timestamp, there should be, like all the communication should be tracked as an activity. That, okay, on 24th of August, so this mail has been shared. This is the WhatsApp that has been shared. So this is the SMS that has been shared. So it gives, an idea of, okay, what all communication has been shared, at what stage this inquiry is, what is the next action that needs to be done, or should it be moved to a marketing bucket? Yeah. So that was one. The fourth one was the student were also kind of having, a poor experience if in case the front end and the back end is not seamlessly integrated and automated. So when I say front end and the back end is, the front end is the portal for the student where they are raising the inquiry. The back end is the UI for the counselors. It means whatever information is being fed by the student, the counselor should be able to access that information. If they're able to access that information, it is like perfect, a seamless integration. And the student will also be kind of be delighted to know that, okay, it's like they're filling a form. So they have completed the first stage in the form. So the drop off, automatically, a mail is sent to the student with a link to complete that. Now the student knows that whatever information he has fed, it's saved. So this kind of, enhance the experience of the student as well. Now, the fifth and the most important part is on all these four. So how do we define the parameters or the most like key indicators? So for centralized communication, okay, so 500 emails has been sent to the student. What is the open ratio? Like these many inquiries, 100 inquiries has been kind of captured from different sources. But how many has been converted into inquiry? So there are like 10 counselors working in my institute. How do I measure that I have assigned, like 50 inquiries to each counselor? So what is the productivity? So we would be able to define all those target or the KPIs, and we would be able to measure it. That's one most important part. Now I'll take the online application process. So when we say the online application process, like how it is helping the institution. First, the paperwork is it's like kind of completely taken off. It is like completely reduced. It's like eliminated. Then the online application forms can be kind of like customized basis the subject, and it is very easy to edit. Say for example, this year I have launched a particular course. Next year I want to add another subject into the course or something else. So I'll be able to just tweak those forms in like couple of hours, and I need not to go for a print and those things. It reflects on a real time, and it's like whatever information the student is filling, I'll be able to capture. Also for the student, they need not to fill that long forms. Okay, they have to just type in the system, and all the students are also kind of very digitally active. So it kind of it also eliminates like any chance for a data loss. So earlier, what used to happen that until and unless the application is not completely filled and submitted by the student, the counselor, or the institution, they do not have any access to this data. But now, as these forms are coming in multi-stages, so even if a student or an inquiry fill in the first page of the form submitted, the information is captured. Now, if he is not filling the second form or there is a drop-off, so there can be kind of automated engagement can start. Okay. Also, through automation, we would be able to kind of create a task for the counselors to call that student to assist him in completing the application form. So that has also kind of improved how the queries of students are being handled now. Yeah, and that is like overall it leads to a kind of student experience enhancement. The few more things I want to just bring in here is key. As I mentioned that the autofill, the fields are autofilled when you're sending out a link if there is a drop off. So when you're sending out a link, automatically once the student he clicks on that link, so all the fields are kind of filled. Like whatever information he has filled in that. So he has to just enter those details which are left out. Then there is an option for the payment to be made in online. So even the institute, they want to collect the token amount. So those kind of things can be done. And about the application, the real-time notification can be sent to the counselor, also to the student. Students can have a portal. We would be able to like offer a portal where student can log in. He can see the status of his application, whether at what stage it is. Like has it moved to assessment stage or to campus visit stage or to offer stage, or whether it is rejected. If rejected, what is the reason? Those things can be planned here. So this is just a replica or a kind of a workflow that we have tried to pull in, where you can see that on the left side, the inquiries are being captured from the landing pages, from social media, PPC ads, email, also from the chatbot. So it comes here on the landing page. In an ideal world, like what happens that if application is kind of filled in, the student kind of complete his application. So let me first take the ideal situation. If the application is kind of completed by the student, then there are like rejection filters basis the percentage, basis the cutoff, basis like certain weightage and all. So if it is rejected, a kind of notification can be sent to the student. So if it is accepted, a kind of notification to be sent to the counselor that hey, so this application has been like accepted, and the counselor has to further like work on that application. So they have to send the details of the course through mail or schedule session for counseling, and then there is like fee collection and all those details can be mapped. The second stage, if the application is not so it's not fully completed, it means that the student filled the first page and then he dropped off. So what happened? We would be able to send out kind of an email or an SMS. In that email and SMS or WhatsApp through TARS, there can be a link where the student can again he can just like click on that link, and fill up the remaining application form. Or if needed in the second stage, we would kind of notify the counseling or the telecalling team to assist the student in filling that form. Yeah. So that we're trying to fill that gap, which was shown in the first slide. That from from inquiry till enrollment. So whether those gaps. So these are the gaps basically, and through engagement and through like continuous nurturing, we would be kind of trying to fill that gap. Now after this, the third component, as I was talking here, so I'll come back again here. So this is so once it is sent to the counselor, still the application or the enrollment is not like completed, or if it is at this stage, a telecalling stage, the enrollment is still in between. So there is a process. So how do we improve that process further? So first is once we have the counselors, the inquiries are kind of received into the system. It should be auto distributed to the counselor, and that distribution can be basis the logic that we define. I would just want to show you here one like application of a receipt. So one, we send out an automated communication. So this is a workflow of a process of admission. So one, we send out a mail along with the course detail automatically. Then we also kind of notify the admission officer, okay, and then we send out to a retargeting. Okay. Also, there is there can be a branch here which talks about this can be distributed to a counselor, and the counselor would be able to take up real time, and that distribution logic can be defined by the business. That can be basis basis the course, or basis the city. Say, I mean, like some application coming from Mumbai, if it is assigned to somebody who speaks Marathi and English, so that can serve better. Now, if an application is coming from say Tamil Nadu, it can be assigned to a counselor who speaks English and Tamil. So those kind of the distribution logics can be defined into the system. And the best part is once we distribute an inquiry, so automatically a task get created for that counselor, and the counselor will have a smart view where he would be able to see. So my new leads. So automatically a calling task get created for the counselor. Then the third is the content can be standardized, where the counselor can have saved templates for engagement, and like whenever they have to send out the course listing of the curriculum, so they can just select from the library and they will be able to send out. Yeah. And in this situation, when it's like from last almost 2 years, people are working from home, so it is very difficult to track the actual behavior or the activities of the counselor. So we enable with lot of reports where we track on real time all the activities done by the counselors. There is a call recording as well, because we integrate with most of the telephony service providers. Then automated these reminders and the notifications that can be sent out to the counselor. And all of this, to regiment all of this, we have defined something that is called a smart view. So smart view is basically the workbench of a counselor. So this is an example of how an incoming phone call automatically pop-up comes. The information is filled because somebody came through a chat tool first. The inquiry came on a chat tool. He spoke on TARS chat, and then that is captured. It is as Leadsquare is having integration with TARS, so automatically that inquiry is captured into Leadsquare system as well. So it's like inquiry is there. Now again, if the same person is calling, there is an inbound phone call. So his name, first name, and this information, whatever is there, would be captured automatically. And then the note says he's interested into fine arts. So counselor would be able to update all those things, and he would be able to very neatly. He would be able to update everything. These are the buckets where he has to work. And it's like every day there will be the new leads and all those things will be here, and he has to mark it, he has to update it 0 every day. So this is the smart view that will basically to improve the productivity of the counselors. Now from the second stakeholders, where the students who are sending out the inquiry, they do a lot of other stuff as well. They sometimes come to the chat tool. They kind of chat with TARs. There are keywords, so that like those chat are also kind of captured as an activity, and then there can be a score attached to it. So we kind of also track if they're coming on your website, clicking on a particular course page, spending 5 minutes on that. So we track all those activities and give a score to ensure that there is a lead score, and then this lead score also kind of define that this lead is very hot. So should we send it to a marketing bucket, or should we send it assign it to a counselor to speak immediately? So those kind of things can be mapped here. So I already showed this. So here it was that as in when application is received, automated communication can be sent out. So the institute would be able to define that what sort of communication has to be sent out to the student at what stages. So first, when he fill in application. Second, when he make the token amount, an SMS should go, a WhatsApp message should go. Third, if he drops off in between, and we see that he was active on Facebook, so do we want to retarget him on Facebook, or do we do remarketing like on Google? So those things can be it's like planned here. And on the left side, if you see, there are reports for this automation. So how many, say 46 inquiries it's like entered into the application. So they fill the application, and 36 kind of it's like exit application. So it means there is a loss of some 10 inquiries. So there is a wait condition, and then we want to engage those 10 inquiries. So we have put kind of a retargeting here for those 10 inquiries. Yeah. Then the last part was how do we kind of monitor all those KPIs. So time to do the first call analysis when an inquiry is received, and what time the call was done. After that, from which source it has come. So what is the conversion? So what is the performance of the counselor? So what is the like marketing spend, like source wise, and like what is the conversion from that particular source, and then the dashboard for the publisher and all. So this was the fifth component. Now the most important is, I would want to say that if we have to set up all this automation to manage the complete admission process, like at Leadsquare, so what are the steps that needs to be taken? It's very simple. So we just need to understand the forms and the admission process, that how the flow should be, and we have to set that up. We'll set up a Leadsquare account. We configure the form process and the automations. We customize a portal for student, a front end for the student, and then we go live. The counselors are trained, and to do all this, it hardly takes 2 to 3 weeks. That's all it takes to set up this complete admission management process. Now I'll take this opportunity. So apart from admission management, I want to touch base on like the capabilities of Leadsquare for an institution, that what all can be done. So first, like definitely the student acquisition process can be completely mapped at Leadsquare, where starting from an inquiry till admission, then the different student services where once they become a student and you want to engage them for different activities, whether for counseling, if you want to like create landing pages for fest, if you want to say it's like run some activities, some campaign for student, say student want to range say they want to like run a campaign for fundraising, so they would be able to do their kind of communication. They would be able to run their email campaign, those things. Then the most important is the alumni services, where the alumni can be completely mapped and managed. So whenever there is a kind of alumni meet, the student or the alumni team would be able to run campaigns. They would be able to connect, and you would be able to have a complete database stored with all the relevant information there. The last but the most important is the placement services. So we have kind of been helping the organization also to kind of map and manage the placement services, where the student committee or the placement committee would be able to map completely the database of the corporates. They would be kind of doing like marketing on that, on the database. They would be running campaign. They would be kind of uploading the database, like uploading those data. They would be kind of like doing the profiling of the students and uploading it into the system. They can schedule interviews. They can send out notification for those. So this is a complete end-to-end solution that we offer to. So Arnav, I think I am done with my sort of discussion, and we would be open for any sort of questions that we have. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for that, Vineet. Thanks. That was super informative. I think that the thing that stood out to me the most is, I mean, we often think of automation happening just on the engagement side when you're engaging with the end prospect or the end lead. But I think what's cool about what you showed is that the automation can also happen in the actual workflow of the admissions counselor. So you're essentially giving the admissions counselor a form of a superpower of sorts, where they automatically create tasks and they automatically do things without actually doing them, which I think is the cooler part of that automation. But yeah, like Vineet said, we are open for questions now. We have about 7 minutes left in the session. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. Feel free to drop them in the chat. We'd be more than happy to answer. If you don't have any questions as well, that's totally fine. That means Vineet and I did a fantastic job of explaining our parts of this webinar, and we can all carry on with our days.
I think there is one question showing.
Yep. So we have a question over here saying, please indicate cost of the chatbot integration. So if you guys heard me typing earlier, because I realized I hadn't switched over mics, I was actually answering this question in the chat. But to recap what I said in the chat, at TARS, the very least, our chatbot pricing is based on your usage and your and the channel that you use. WhatsApp and web obviously are different because WhatsApp has a completely different set of considerations. The way WhatsApp administers its API, applying for that API, etc., etc. Sending template messages obviously costs a little bit per message. So if you want to know an exact amount, I would highly recommend that you book a demo with someone on our team. What I'll do is I will drop a link to that link to where you can book a demo. And once you are on that link, just book a demo with us, and someone will jump on a call with you, ask you your specific needs, and then you can get an exact quote of how much it'll cost. Is there statutory restrictions on WhatsApp messaging? Unsure what you mean by that. If you could expand, that would be great. But as far as I understand it, if I understand it at a vague level, WhatsApp isn't regulated necessarily by the government. I think WhatsApp's the main place where you're going to see any rules imposed on you when you're interacting with people on WhatsApp is by WhatsApp itself. So WhatsApp has a certain set of rules on what sorts of messages you can send, what sorts of products you can sell on WhatsApp. So yeah, so the DND and restrictions, we actually hosted DND restrictions. That's not enforced at the regulatory level. It's enforced at the WhatsApp level. WhatsApp actually does have a mechanism at what WhatsApp wants you to do is they want you to get an opt-in from from the people you interact with on WhatsApp before you start sending them messages on WhatsApp. But even that opt-in requirement is not something that they enforce. I don't want to say strictly because they do have an enforcement mechanism for it, but it's not like if you send a message to someone who has not opted in, who is not expressly opted in for your messages, WhatsApp will automatically ban your number. Instead, what they do is they have a tier-based messaging system where they tell you how many messages you can send to people on WhatsApp within a certain hour. So tier 1, I don't remember the exact numbers for these tiers. If someone on my team can help me find those tiers. Let me see if I can find them. But basically, WhatsApp has 3 tiers of engagement, and those tiers define how many messages you can send in a certain amount of time. So over here, I have the tiers. Yeah, tier 1 allows businesses to send messages to 1,000 unique customers in a rolling 24-hour period. Tier 2 allows you to send messages to 10K unique customers in a 24-hour rolling period, and tier 3 is 100K unique customers in a 24-hour rolling period. So the way WhatsApp implements its opt-in requirement is that if you are not getting opt-ins from if you're not getting opt-ins from your customers before you send them messages on WhatsApp, they have the option of reporting you or blocking you as spam. So if you're sending people messages that they did not ask for, in all likelihood, they are going to block your number or they're going to report you as spam. And that is going to go to WhatsApp. WhatsApp's going to have that information, and they're going to use that information to decide whether to move you up in these tiers. So if you're stuck in tier 1 because you're spamming people when they don't want to be messaged, WhatsApp is basically just going to limit the number of people that you can message in a 24-hour period. And 1,000 unique customers in a 24-hour period is really not very much. So that's how WhatsApp regulates spam on their platform. Obviously, also the other big thing with WhatsApp is that you need to get approved. You need to get approved before you can get a number on WhatsApp. The next question we have over here from Ramesh as well is, can we send media on WhatsApp? Good question. This is a better question for our sales or customer success team. As far as I understand, I don't think you currently can I think you can send images. You can send some types of media. You can't send others. You can send images. I'm not sure if you can send things like PDFs yet, at least on the TARS WhatsApp platform. But if anyone from my team is listening, feel free to correct me. We have another question over here. That's, what is the source that we can use for the automation? Do you have an application? How do we streamline the leads and categorize them? Yep, all of that can be done in, so on the chatbot side, all of that can be done in the TARS builder. So if you go to hellotars.com, you should be able to sign up for a builder and use it. It's very simple. You just have to build a flow chart with the conversational flow. And then we can help you if you want to deploy it to WhatsApp. It's obviously a few extra steps. We can obviously help you with those, help you get the WhatsApp business number, help you integrate with WhatsApp business number, but it's all done in a graphical user interface, a GUI. So you can theoretically do everything on your own. And we do have an application, so to speak, to do that. In terms of how you can streamline the leads and categorize them, that will all depend on your flow. So depending on how you construct that flow chart with the conversation, you can have it end at different points, and based on where the conversation ends, you can structure the lead differently before you send it to your CRM. So what we've seen people do is we've seen them have different sorts of lead structures based on which branch in the conversation people go to, and then they have different API calls where they send that lead information to their CRM, and that way it gets categorized in the CRM it's categorized before it even reaches the CRM, so that it's organized once it's there. Answering the same question on the Leadsquare side, on the CRM side, I'll hand that over to Vineet. So the question, Vineet, to recap is, what is the source that we can use for the automation? Do you have an application, and how do you streamline leads and categorize them?
Sure. Yeah. So it's a very good question. I mean, when we're talking about automation, how do we set up automation? So yes, there is an application. On that application, starting from leads capture. Once the lead is captured, so there is no kind of a workflow designer. So we would be able to kind of drag and drop and it's like create a workflow that when a lead is captured, inquiry is captured, what should be the next step? So it should go for some automated journey. In that journey, whether we need to send out some automated communication, or do we need to kind of notify a counselor? So those automations can be like very well designed to the system on the application itself. So that's my answer. I hope I'm able to satisfy with this.
Yep. The workflow designer that you talked about, is that one of the flowcharts that you had on one of your slides? Was that the workflow?
True. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So if I will just try to take back to the same flowchart. Yeah. So this was the flow chart I was talking. So there's just, a drag and drop where like inquiry received, and this is on Leadsquare application itself, where on the back end, an admin, like anybody who has got an admin right, would be able to kind of build this automation.
Right. Okay, so we have some more questions here. Is there any AI built into the chatbot? I think that might have to be our last question. We have one more question after that, and we'll see if we can get to it, but we're over time right now. So I'll answer this one. Is there any AI built into the chatbot? Not necessarily. It really depends on you. What we've seen is that you don't necessarily need AI to create a conversational interaction. You can have quick reply buttons. You can have quick reply options for users to drive the conversation forward. And usually that works pretty well for basic lead capture. And basic FAQs. If you want to do something more complex on the customer service side, where customer sends you their question and then you detect what that question is and answer back to them, you can integrate AI into the chatbot. And usually what our customers do is they create a classifier in something like Dialogflow, and then we integrate it into the chatbot so that the chatbot has an NLP component to it. But it's not necessarily necessary that you have to have AI built into it. It's something that we leave up to our customers. And then the final question, like SMS and email, can WhatsApp messaging be built into the Leadsquare automation? Right now, we don't, the TARS WhatsApp automation, we don't have built right into Leadsquare, but what we do have is an integration where conversations that we facilitate over WhatsApp, you can send through an API integration details from that conversation to your Leadsquare account. And also you can fetch, I presume with most CRMs, we can do this. I'm pretty sure we can do this with Leadsquare as well. We can fetch information into the conversation. So that really enriches the conversation that the prospect is having, because if you think about it, just like what Vineet was saying with the automatic form fills, when you send them a link saying, hey, come back and fill out this form, come back and fill out this application, you automatically fill all the fields out in the form. Well, when the chatbot is having a conversation with someone on WhatsApp, they already know the person's number, because when you're having a conversation with someone, you have access to their number. Similarly, the chatbot has access to the number. Now, based on that number, the chatbot can cross-reference that with your Leadsquare database, see if the customer has already interacted, or the student has already interacted with you, and then according to that, give them customized responses or auto-populate some messages with details that of the specific student. So, for example, checking status of the application. If someone comes onto the chat and says, "Hey, what's the status of my application?" the chatbot can actually use the user's phone number to figure out where their application is, and then send them a response to that. So that is, in that sense, you can, I guess, integrate WhatsApp messaging into Leadsquare. I think with that, we are going to have to end this webinar. We've gone a little bit over. It's been some time since we went over, but the reason we went over is because we got these awesome questions from you guys. Always a pleasure hosting webinars where we have such an engaged audience. And of course, always such a pleasure hosting a webinar with a co-host like Vineet. Vineet, thank you for joining us today. It was an absolute...
Thanks a lot. It was really wonderful like hosting this webinar with you. And thanks a lot, everyone, all the audience who joined this. And the questions were like really wonderful. So we Absolutely. Had a good time. We enjoyed hosting this webinar a lot. Thanks a lot.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Well, have a great day, everyone. We'll send you a recording to this webinar after it's processed.